Throughout the summer of 2005, the whole world seemed to be wondering what had become of Natalee Holloway.
Beth Holloway Twitty with the very latest on the search for her daughter.
The search is continuing.
It is now that I ask the world to help me.
While her parents were grateful for the attention, hoping it might prompt people with information to come forward, it became increasingly difficult to separate good leads from bad.
I mean, I've had calls from Natalee's in a freezer at the Vandersloot house to Natalee's in a boat in Venezuela or Colombia. So, you know, it was hell at first.
How do you cope with that?
You just become numb to it.
The search to find Natalee had been massive. Hundreds took part. Volunteers, the Dutch Marines, and even government employees who were given time off to take part in the effort. But even with all those resources, Natalee's family wanted to do more. So they brought in this man, a hard-charging, hard-living Texan named Tim Miller. If anyone could find Natalee, they thought that perhaps he could.
It would not be unreasonable to say that you are obsessed with this case.
I'm obsessed with every missing person case. Everyone. This one's just went a little bit farther.
Tim Miller knew the Holloway's pain all too well. 2 decades earlier, his 16-year-old daughter, Laura, disappeared. From the start, Miller suspected that she'd met with foul play and was probably dead. But weeks, then months passed with no leads or information. All Tim Miller could do was wait.
Police said that she was a runaway. We couldn't get any help. There weren't any search teams, and I just felt helpless.
Eventually, Tim got the worst call a parent can face. His daughter's body had been found in a field just 2 miles from his home. Her murder remains unsolved.
I felt then that I'd really let Laura down for not doing anything. I wasn't the father I should have been.
He couldn't help his daughter, but he could help others. In 2000, taking time from his construction business, he organized Texas EquiSearch as a memorial to Laura. The goal, help other families find the loved ones they'd lost. In the years since, he says the group has conducted more than 800 searches, found 250 people alive, and located the remains of 80 missing persons. Experience in so many searches, he says, has given him insight and more resources than many large police departments. Now, he's frequently called in to aid high-profile searches, like the recent one in Illinois for Stacy Peterson.
I gotta say no sometime. The next time that phone rings, I want you to answer it. And you listen to that mother on the other end. You tell her no, I can't. You tell her. Law enforcement tells them no, we can't.
And his first conversation with Beth Holloway Twitty was no different.
When I heard her voice, you know, it kind of reminded me back when Laura was missing. And I made a promise to God and to Laura that I'd never leave another family alone again, but I didn't think it was going to take us to Aruba.
Little did Tim Miller know, but he'd spend nearly a year of his life in Aruba, knocking on doors, hunting down leads, sifting the sand and the sea. Along the way, he became close friends with Natalee's father, Dave, who joined him on many searches.
2 of those weeks were at least spent digging in a garbage dump.
And I'll never forget that day when Dave Holloway's in the bottom of that well on Natalee's birthday, putting trash in a bucket, and I'm pulling it up, thinking maybe they put Natalee in a well and threw trash on top of her. And I said, "It's a hell of a way to spend your daughter's birthday." I said, "Dave, get out of that hole." And so he got out, and I went down, and then he said, "Tim, get out of that hole." He said, "I'm leaving Aruba. I will never come back here again."
But Tim Miller says that very day in October 2005, there was a turning point. The deputy police chief saw Miller and Dave Holloway and shared a hunch.
And said, "There's no need for y'all to be searching the landfill anymore." He said, "I think y'all need to be out in the sea 3 to 5 miles.
Soon, another tip, one that seemed to add credibility to that theory. On the night Natalee disappeared, Miller learned that there had been a break-in at a fisherman's hut on the beach. Among the missing items, a metal and wire box, a fish trap. Miller wondered if they could have used it to dispose of Natalee's body and weigh her down at sea, so her body couldn't be discovered.
Well, we talked to a lot of people in Aruba, and they say 90% of anybody that drowns on that side of the island, their bodies will float up to the banks of Venezuela. I don't think that they was willing to take a risk on Natalie's body floating.
Miller was determined to launch a search, but one sophisticated enough to find a target so tiny, a fish trap, in an area so vast seemed just about impossible. Until this man entered the picture. His name is Louis Schaefer.
First we got to find.
I've been following the story ever since it happened, and I felt so sad for Dave and Beth because they just didn't seem like they were getting the cooperation and everything that they needed.
Schaefer is a self-made multimillionaire who made his fortune in the underwater exploration business. Schaefer was one of the few people in the world with the expertise to help find Natalie's body if Tim Miller's theory was correct, and he was offering his services free of charge. The plan was to use high-tech equipment to map the ocean floor off Aruba, and then, step by step, use state-of-the-art equipment to scan the bottom for anything that looked like it could contain Natalie's remains. Just before Thanksgiving 2007, Dave Holloway came to see the Persistence, the vessel that he hoped would bring Natalie home. It was the beginning of another heartbreaking turn, one that would take them from heights of hope to depths of despair.
You know, Chris, there's been times, I'll be honest with you, you look up in the sky at night or get up and you can't sleep, you look up at the stars and say, God, help us. Answer some prayers for us.
After 2.5 years of searching, Natalie's parents are told they may finally have an answer.
I got a phone call from Tim.
And what he said?
He told me, he said, Dave, we found her.
When the search for Natalie Holloway continues.